Rain drowned the skyline of Seattle in neon and smoke as Scarlet Veil stood trembling inside the private closet of Kyle Minjun's penthouse. Crystal whiskey in one hand, poison in the other. The plan was simple. Kill the most feared mafia boss on the West Coast before midnight, and the Red Orchid Syndicate would give her dying 5-year-old son the antidote they controlled. But nothing about Kyle Minjun was simple. The door exploded inward. Kyle stepped through the shattered frame shirtless, tattooed dragons curling across his scarred chest like living shadows. Blood stained his knuckles from a war he'd clearly just finished. His dark eyes locked onto Scarlet's tear-streaked face, instantly dissecting every lie she had tried to survive behind. Then he gently took the poison from her trembling hand and drank it himself without breaking eye contact. If you want to see how a woman sent to murder Seattle's most dangerous kingpin becomes the one thing he refuses to lose, stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. The glass vial felt heavier than it should have. Scarlet Veil stood in the cramped employee bathroom of the Minjun Tower penthouse, staring at the clear liquid inside the small bottle like it was her son's last heartbeat. Her reflection in the mirror looked like a stranger. Hollow eyes, cracked lips, hair pulled back so tight it hurt. She didn't recognize the woman staring back anymore. 8 months ago, she'd been a bartender with calloused hands and a loud laugh. Now she was a ghost dressed in a gray maid's uniform, invisible to everyone except the syndicate members who owned her. The Red Orchid Syndicate didn't ask nicely. They took her son. They poisoned him slowly, methodically, until his small body became dependent on the antidote only they controlled. Every 2 weeks, a man in a black sedan would meet Scarlet in a parking garage and hand her a single syringe. No words, no promises. Just enough medicine to keep her boy alive until the next exchange. And in return, she did what they told her. Tonight, that meant murder. Scarlet tucked the vial into the pocket of her apron and stepped back into the hallway. The penthouse stretched out before her like a cathedral built for violence. Marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Seattle skyline. Art that probably cost more than her entire life. Kale Minjun's empire wasn't subtle. It was a statement. She moved through the space quietly, her rubber-soled shoes barely making a sound. She'd learned the rhythms of this place over the past months. Which rooms Kyle used, which hallways his guards patrolled, which corners held cameras, and which were blind spots. The syndicate had been thorough in their instructions. Poison his evening whiskey. Make it look natural. A heart attack. An aneurysm. Something plausible for a man who lived like violence was oxygen. Then disappear. Scarlet reached the private study where Kyle kept his liquor cabinet. Her hand shook as she pulled out the crystal decanter of Japanese whiskey he drank every night at 11. The vial felt like it was burning through her apron. She unscrewed the cap, tilted the poison toward the amber liquid, and froze, because she heard footsteps behind her. Scarlet spun around, her heart slamming against her ribs so hard she thought it might crack through bone. Kale Minjun stood in the doorway, shirtless, blood on his knuckles, tattoos curling across his chest like something alive. His dark eyes didn't blink as they locked onto hers. He looked like he'd just walked out of a war, and he was staring directly at the vial in her hand. Scarlet's throat closed, her vision tunneled. Every survival instinct screamed at her to run, but her legs wouldn't move. Kyle stepped into the room, slow, deliberate, like he had all the time in the world. "You're still here," he said quietly. His voice was rough, textured with exhaustion and something darker. "I thought you'd be gone by now." Scarlet's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Kale's gaze dropped to the vial, then back to her face. "What's that?" he asked. "Nothing," Scarlet whispered. Her voice cracked. "I was just poisoning my whiskey." Wasn't a question. Scarlet felt the floor drop out from under her. Kale moved closer, close enough that she could smell the copper tang of blood on his skin. Close enough to see the faint scar cutting through his left eyebrow. "How long have you been planning this?" he asked. Scarlet's breath came in shallow gasps. Don't lie to me." His voice didn't rise, but the command in it was absolute. "You've been working in my house for 8 months,
cleaning my floors, washing my sheets, watching me like you're trying to memorize my routine.
Her knees buckled slightly. Kyle caught her elbow before she collapsed. His grip was firm, but not cruel. That was the worst part. He wasn't hurting her. He was just holding her upright while her entire world shattered. "Who sent you?" he asked. Scarlett shook her head violently. "No one. I swear. Scarlett." Hearing her name from his mouth felt like a knife sliding between her ribs. She looked up at him, and for the first time in 8 months, she met his eyes directly instead of staring at the floor like a good invisible servant. Kyle's expression didn't change, but something in his gaze shifted. "Your son," he said quietly. "He's sick." Scarlett's entire body went rigid. "How do you— I know everything about you." Kale released her elbow and stepped back, giving her space to breathe. "I know your brother sold you to the Red Orchid Syndicate to pay off his gambling debts. I know they're poisoning your son and holding the antidote hostage. I know they sent you here to kill me." Scarlett felt tears burn hot and fast down her cheeks. "I know," Kale continued, his voice low and steady, "that you've been standing in my kitchen at 2 in the morning crying because you can't figure out how to become a murderer." She couldn't breathe. Kale reached past her and picked up the decanter of whiskey. He poured 2 fingers into a glass. Then he held out his hand. "Give me the vial," he said. Scarlett's fingers trembled as she placed it in his palm. Kyle unscrewed the cap, tilted the poison into the whiskey, and swirled it gently. Then he drank it, all of it. Scarlett screamed and lunged forward, but Kyle caught her wrists effortlessly. "Stop," he said. "You just—" Scarlett choked on the words. "You just killed yourself." "No." Kale set the empty glass down on the desk. "I replaced the poison 3 days ago." Scarlett stared at him like he was speaking a language she didn't understand. Kyle released her wrists and leaned back against the desk, crossing his arms over his bare chest. Blood still stained his knuckles. He looked exhausted, dangerous, heartbreakingly human. "I've known about the Red Orchid's plan since the day you walked into my building," he said. "I've been watching you, waiting to see if you'd actually go through with it." "Why?" Scarlett whispered. Kale's mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Because," he said, "I wanted to see if you were different." "Different from what?" "From everyone else who's tried to kill me." Scarlett's legs finally gave out. She sank down onto the leather chair behind her, shaking so hard her teeth chattered. Kyle watched her for a long moment. Then he walked to the window and stared out at the rain-soaked city below. "Your son's name is Theo," Kale said quietly. "He's 5 years old. He likes dinosaurs. His favorite color is green. He's been in Seattle General Hospital for 6 months." Scarlett couldn't stop the sob that tore out of her chest. "I've had armed guards outside his room since the day I found out about the syndicate's plan," Kyle continued. "No one's going to hurt him." "Why would you do that?" Scarlett's voice broke. "You don't even know me." Kale turned to face her. "No," he agreed, "but I know what it's like to lose someone you love because you weren't strong enough to protect them." Something in his expression cracked open just enough for Scarlett to see the scar tissue underneath. She wiped her face with the back of her hand. "What happens now?" "Now," Kyle said, "you tell me everything the Red Orchid Syndicate told you to do." "They'll kill my son if I don't." "They won't touch him." Kale's voice was granite. "I've already made sure of that." Scarlett wanted to believe him, desperately, but belief felt like a luxury she couldn't afford. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. Kale was silent for a long time. Then he said, "Because you couldn't do it." Scarlett frowned. "Couldn't do what?" "Kill me." Kale gestured toward the empty glass. "You've had 8 months. You've had access to my food, my drinks, my bedroom. You could have poisoned me 100 different ways. They only gave me the vial tonight." "You could have stabbed me in my sleep," Kale interrupted, "pushed me off a balcony, tampered with my car. But you didn't." Scarlett stared at him. "You're not a killer," Kale said quietly, "even when your son's life depends on it. That makes you either the weakest person I've ever met or the strongest." "I'm not strong," Scarlett whispered. "I'm terrified." "Good." Kale pushed off the desk and walked toward her. "Fear keeps you alive." He stopped in front of her chair and crouched down so they were eye level. "Here's what's going to happen," he said. "You're going to keep working here like nothing changed. You're going to report back to the syndicate that I'm dead. And while they think they've won, I'm going to dismantle their entire organization piece by piece until there's nothing left." Scarlett's breath caught. "They'll know I'm lying."
No, they won't." Kael's eyes were dark and certain. "Because I'm very good at playing dead. And my son, we'll get the antidote. The real one, not the synthetic garbage the syndicate's been feeding him." "How? I have resources they don't." Kael stood up. "Trust me." Scarlett almost laughed. "You're asking me to trust the man I was sent to murder." "Yes." "Why should I?" Kael's expression softened in a way that made him look younger, vulnerable. "Because," he said, "I'm the only person in this city who's actually trying to keep you alive." The next 72 hours passed in a blur of fear and adrenaline. Scarlett played her role perfectly. She called the syndicate contact number and reported Kael's death in a shaking voice. She described finding his body slumped over his desk, the empty whiskey glass still in his hand. The man on the other end of the line was silent for a long time. Then he said, "Good, we'll be in touch." The line went dead. Scarlett stood in the employee bathroom, gripping the sink so hard her knuckles turned white. She waited for the door to burst open, for syndicate soldiers to drag her out and put a bullet in her skull for lying. But nothing happened. Kael had been right. They believed her. That night, Scarlett returned to the hospital to check on Theo. She half expected to find his room empty, his bed stripped, her worst nightmare confirmed. Instead, she found two men in black suits standing outside the door. They didn't stop her. They just nodded as she walked past. Inside, Theo was asleep, his small chest rising and falling in steady rhythm. An IV drip fed into his arm, but the monitors above his bed showed strong, stable vitals. Scarlett sank into the chair beside him and buried her face in her hands. For the first time in 6 months, she let herself cry without fear of being heard. A nurse came in an hour later with a clipboard and a kind smile. "Miss Vale?" Scarlett looked up quickly, wiping her eyes. "Yes?" "We've received authorization to begin a new treatment protocol for Theo," the nurse said. "It's experimental, but the preliminary results are very promising." Scarlett's heart stopped. "Who authorized it?" The nurse checked her clipboard. "The hospital's anonymous donor program. Someone's covering all of Theo's medical expenses moving forward." Scarlett's throat tightened. "Is that—" She couldn't finish the sentence. "Is he going to be okay?" The nurse's smile widened. "We're very optimistic." After the nurse left, Scarlett sat in the dark hospital room and stared at her son's sleeping face. Kael Min-jun had kept his promise, and that terrified her more than anything the syndicate had ever done. Kael didn't summon her back to the penthouse for 3 days. When he finally did, it was through a text message at 2 in the morning. "Come upstairs. We need to talk." Scarlett's stomach twisted as she rode the private elevator to the top floor. The doors opened directly into the penthouse living room. Kael was standing by the windows, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He'd changed since the night she tried to poison him. Now he wore a black button-down shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, dark slacks that fit like they'd been tailored specifically for violence. He looked like power wrapped in human skin. "How's Theo?" Kael asked without turning around. "Better?" Scarlett stepped into the room cautiously. "The new treatment is working." "Good." Silence stretched between them. Scarlett forced herself to speak. "Why did you want to see me?" Kael finally turned to face her. His expression was unreadable. "The Red Orchid Syndicate believes I'm dead," he said. "That gives us a small window of opportunity." "To do what?" "To find out who's really running their operation." Scarlett frowned. "I thought you already knew." "I know the public face," Kael interrupted. "But someone higher up is pulling the strings. Someone who wants me dead badly enough to weaponize a sick child." Scarlett's chest tightened. "You think this is personal?" "I know it is." Kael set his glass down. "The Red Orchid Syndicate has been trying to take over Seattle's underworld for years, but they've never made a move this direct before." "What changed?" Kael's jaw tightened. "Me."
He crossed the room and pulled a folder from his desk drawer. He handed it to Scarlett. She opened it slowly. Inside were photographs, documents, medical records, and a name she recognized, Evelyn Min. Your grandmother, Scarlett whispered. Kael nodded. She runs the Red Orchid Syndicate, has for the past 30 years. Scarlett looked up at him. She sent me to kill you. Yes. Why? Kael's expression darkened. Because I'm the only thing standing between her and complete control of the West Coast smuggling routes, and because she's never forgiven me for trying to leave the family business. Scarlett stared at the photograph of Evelyn Min. The woman looked elegant, composed, like someone's kind grandmother, but her eyes were cold. What do you want from me? Scarlett asked quietly. Kael met her gaze. I want you to help me destroy her. Scarlett's breath caught. I can't. You already did, Kael said. The moment you walked into my house with poison in your pocket, you became part of this war. I didn't have a choice. Neither do I. Kael's voice was hard. Evelyn won't stop. She'll keep coming after me. She'll keep using people like you and Theo as leverage until I'm dead or broken. Scarlett shook her head. I'm not a fighter. I'm a bartender, a mother. I don't know anything about your world. You know enough. Kael stepped closer. You know how to survive. That's more valuable than you think. Scarlett looked down at the folder in her hands, at the photographs of Evelyn Min surrounded by armed guards and expensive art. If I help you, Scarlett said slowly, what happens to Theo? He stays protected. He gets the treatment he needs, and when this is over, you both disappear. New identities, new city, wherever you want to go. It sounded too good to be true, which meant it probably was. But Scarlett was out of options. She closed the folder and met Kael's eyes. What do you need me to do? Kael's expression shifted into something sharp and dangerous. I need you, he said, to become someone Evelyn Min will believe at. Training started the next morning. Kael didn't ease her into it. He threw her into the deep end and watched to see if she'd drown. The penthouse had a private gym on the lower level. Scarlett had cleaned it 100 times but never actually used it. Now Kael stood in the center of the room, arms crossed, watching her like she was a weapon he was trying to figure out how to load. Hit me, he said. Scarlett blinked. What? Hit me, as hard as you can. I'm not going to, Kael moved faster than she could track. 1 second he was standing 3 feet away. The next, he had her wrist locked in his grip and her back pressed against the wall. Not painful, but absolute. You hesitate, Kael said quietly, his face inches from hers. You die. Do you understand? Scarlett's pulse hammered in her throat. Kael released her and stepped back. Again, hit me. This time, Scarlett swung. Her fist connected with Kael's palm. He'd caught it effortlessly, but he didn't mock her. Better, he said. Again. They trained for 3 hours. By the end, Scarlett's entire body ached. Her knuckles were bruised, her lungs burned. But she'd managed to land 2 solid hits, one to Kael's ribs, one to his jaw. He didn't flinch. He just smiled faintly and said, You're learning. Over the next 2 weeks, Kael transformed Scarlett from Invisible Maid into something else entirely. He taught her how to move through a room without being noticed, how to read body language, how to lie convincingly, how to identify exits and weapons and weaknesses in under 10 seconds. He taught her how to survive, but he also taught her something more dangerous. He taught her to see him as human. Late one night, after a particularly brutal training session, Scarlett found Kael sitting alone on the penthouse balcony. Rain poured down around him, but he didn't seem to notice. Scarlett hesitated in the doorway, then she stepped outside. You'll catch a cold, she said quietly. Kael glanced at her. I don't get sick. Everyone gets sick. Not me. He turned back to the city. My body doesn't allow it. Scarlett frowned and sat down in the chair beside him. What does that mean? Kael was silent for a long moment. Then he said, I have a genetic condition. It's slowly killing me, has been for years. Scarlett's breath caught. How long? She asked. Kael shrugged. 5 years, maybe less. Is there a cure? Not yet.
His voice was flat, resigned. But I'm working on it. Scarlett stared at him. At this man who controlled an empire, who moved like violence incarnate, who'd saved her son without hesitation. And she realized he was dying. Is that why you're doing this? She asked. Going after Evelyn? Because you're running out of time? Cale's jaw tightened. Partially. What's the other part?
He turned to look at her, and for the first time, Scarlett saw something raw and unguarded in his expression. Revenge, he said simply. For what? Cale's eyes darkened. For the woman Evelyn killed to keep me loyal. Scarlett's heart clenched. She didn't ask for details. She didn't need to. The pain in Cale's voice told her everything. They sat in silence as the rain fell around them, two broken people trying to figure out how to survive a war neither of them had asked for. And somewhere in that silence, something shifted between them. Something dangerous. Something neither of them could afford. Ichiets. The syndicate made contact again 2 days later. Scarlett received a text message from an unknown number. Proof of death required. Deliver within 24 hours. Her hand shook as she showed the message to Kyle. He read it once, then looked up at her with an expression that sent ice down her spine. They don't believe you, he said. What do I do? Kyle handed the phone back. Give them what they want. How, I'll handle it. He pulled out his own phone and made a call. Marcus, I need you at the penthouse in 20 minutes. Bring the kit. Scarlett's stomach twisted. What are you planning? Kyle didn't answer. 20 minutes later, a man in his 40s arrived carrying a sleek black case. He looked like a doctor, moved like a soldier. Marcus is my medic, Kale explained. He's going to help us stage my death convincingly. Marcus opened the case and pulled out medical equipment Scarlett didn't recognize. We're going to induce a temporary cardiac event, Marcus said calmly, like he was describing how to make coffee. It'll stop your heart for approximately 90 seconds, long enough to register as clinical death on any monitoring equipment. Scarlett's eyes went wide. You're going to kill yourself? Temporarily, Kale corrected. That's insane. It's necessary. Kale sat down on the couch and started rolling up his sleeve. They want proof. We're giving it to them. Marcus prepped an IV line with practiced efficiency. Scarlett grabbed Kyle's arm. Don't do this. Kale looked at her, really looked at her. If I don't, he said quietly, they'll kill Theo to prove a point. Scarlett's grip loosened. Kale was right. She hated that he was right. Record everything, Kale told her, handing her his phone. Vital signs, flatline, time of death. They'll want documentation. Marcus inserted the IV and prepared the injection. Scarlett's hands trembled as she held up the phone. Ready? Marcus asked. Kale nodded. Marcus injected the drug. For 5 seconds, nothing happened. Then Kyle's eyes rolled back. His body convulsed once, violently, before going completely still. The heart monitor Marcus had attached to his chest flatlined. Scarlett screamed. Marcus immediately began CPR, his movements calm and mechanical. 30 seconds, 60 seconds, 90 seconds. The flatline continued. Scarlett couldn't breathe. Then Marcus grabbed a second syringe and injected it directly into Kyle's chest. The monitor beeped. Once, twice. Kyle's eyes snapped open. He gasped, his entire body arching off the couch as his heart restarted. Scarlett dropped the phone and collapsed beside him, her hands shaking so badly she couldn't control them. You're insane, she whispered. You're absolutely insane. Kale coughed and sat up slowly. His face was pale, but he was smiling faintly. Did you get it? He asked, his voice hoarse. Scarlett picked up the phone with trembling fingers. Yes. Good. Kale stood up, swaying slightly. Marcus steadied him. Send it to them. Scarlett's finger hovered over the send button. Then she pressed it. The video uploaded. Within minutes, her phone buzzed with a response. Confirmed. Contract fulfilled. Final payment delivered to location Alpha. Scarlett showed the message to Kale. He read it and nodded. They bought it. What happens now? Kale's expression turned cold and predatory. Now, he said, we go to war. The war didn't start with gunfire. It started with silence. 3 days after Kale's staged death, the Red Orchid Syndicate went quiet. No demands, no threats, no contact.
Scarlett found the silence more terrifying than any weapon. She stood in the penthouse kitchen at 4 in the morning, unable to sleep, staring at her phone like it might suddenly explode. The city stretched out beyond the windows, neon bleeding through rain and fog. Everything looked the same as it always had.
But nothing was the same. Kyle appeared in the doorway behind her without making a sound. She'd stopped being surprised by that. He moved like smoke when he wanted to. "You should be resting," he said. Scarlett didn't turn around. "Can't? Your son's stable. The treatment's working. You have nothing to worry about right now." "I have everything to worry about." She finally looked at him. Kale wore black tactical pants and a fitted shirt that showed every line of muscle beneath. He looked ready for violence. He always looked ready for violence. "They're too quiet. Something's wrong." Kale crossed the kitchen and poured himself coffee from the pot Scarlett had made an hour earlier. "They're regrouping. Evelyn's trying to figure out who killed me. Won't she know it was me? She'll suspect. But suspicion isn't proof." He leaned against the counter, studying her. "You look exhausted." "I am exhausted." "Then sleep." Scarlett laughed bitterly. "I can't remember what that feels like anymore." Kyle was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "When this is over, you'll have time to remember." "You keep saying when this is over like you're certain we'll survive." "I am certain." "How?" Kyle's eyes were dark and steady. "Because I don't lose." The arrogance in his voice should have irritated her. Instead, it felt like the only stable thing in her collapsing world. Her phone buzzed, both of them tensed. Scarlett grabbed it, her heart slamming against her ribs. Unknown number. She showed the screen to Kyle. He nodded once. She answered. "Hello?" Static crackled on the other end. Then a voice she didn't recognize, male, flat, cold. "Scarlett Vale." "Yes." "You've been invited to attend a memorial service for Kyle Minjun tomorrow evening, 7 o'clock, the Lotus Garden on 5th Avenue. Attendance is mandatory." The line went dead. Scarlett's hand shook as she lowered the phone. Kyle's expression had gone completely blank. Not surprised, not worried, just calculating. "They're testing you," he said. "What if they know I'm lying? Then you'll be dead before dessert." He said it so calmly that Scarlett wanted to scream. "But they don't know. They're fishing." "And if they catch something," Kyle set his coffee down. "They won't, because I'm going to teach you exactly what to say." The next 18 hours were brutal. Kyle drilled Scarlett relentlessly on every detail of his supposed death. How she'd found him. What the room had looked like. The exact position of his body. The smell of the whiskey. The sound his head made when it hit the desk. He made her describe it over and over until the lies felt like memories. "You're overthinking," Kyle said for the 10th time. "Stop trying to sound convincing. Just sound tired." "I am tired." "Good. Use it." He circled her like a predator examining prey. "When they ask you how you felt watching me die, what do you say?" Scarlett's jaw tightened. "I say I felt nothing." "Why?" "Because I barely knew you. You were just my employer." "And if they ask why you stayed in the room?" "I was in shock." "Why didn't you call for help?" "I was afraid they'd blame me." Kale stopped circling. "Better, but you're still too composed. Fall apart a little." "I don't know how." Yes, you do." Kale's voice dropped. "Think about Theo in that hospital bed. Think about what happens if you fail tonight." Scarlett's breath hitched. Tears burned hot behind her eyes. Kale nodded. "There. That's what they need to see." She hated him for it. Hated how easily he could weaponize her fear. But she also understood why he was doing it, because mercy would get her killed. The Lotus Garden was exactly what Scarlett expected. Elegant, expensive, deadly. The restaurant occupied the top 3 floors of a glass tower overlooking Elliott Bay. Red lanterns hung from the ceiling like drops of blood. The walls were decorated with hand-painted cherry blossoms that probably cost more than Scarlett's entire apartment. She arrived at 6:55 wearing a simple black dress Kyle had provided. Nothing flashy, nothing memorable. Just a grieving employee paying her respects. A hostess in a crimson cheongsam greeted her at the entrance. "Name?" Scarlet Vale. The hostess checked her tablet and smiled. Third floor, private room. They're expecting you. Scarlet's stomach twisted as she stepped into the elevator. The doors closed. She was alone. Her reflection stared back at her from the mirrored walls. She looked pale, fragile, exactly how she needed to look. The elevator chimed. Third floor. The doors opened onto a hallway lined with more red lanterns. At the end of the corridor stood two men in dark suits. Security. They didn't speak as Scarlet approached, just opened the double doors and gestured for her to enter. Inside, a long table had been set for 12 people. Only 3 seats were occupied. At the head of the table sat an elderly woman with silver hair pulled into an immaculate bun. She wore a white silk dress that seemed to glow against her pale skin. Her hands were folded neatly in front of her. Her eyes were the coldest thing Scarlet had ever seen. Evelyn Min. To her left sat a man in his 30s with sharp features and an expensive suit. He looked bored. To her right sat another man, older, with scars along his jaw and hands that looked like they'd broken bones for pleasure. All 3 of them turned to look at Scarlet as she entered. "Miss Vale," Evelyn said. Her voice was soft, musical, terrifying. "Please sit." Scarlet's legs barely carried her to the empty chair across from Evelyn. She sat. The room was silent except for the faint hum of classical music playing from hidden speakers. Evelyn studied her for a long moment. Then she smiled. "You look unwell, dear." Scarlet swallowed. "I haven't been sleeping well." "Understandable. Watching someone die is never easy." Evelyn picked up a delicate teacup and sipped. "Tell me, what was it like? Seeing my grandson take his last breath?" Scarlet's hands trembled in her lap. She thought about Kael's instructions. "Fall apart a little." "It was horrible," she whispered. "How so?" "He just—" Scarlet's voice cracked. "He collapsed. I thought he was having a heart attack. I didn't know what to do." "Did he say anything before he died?" "No, he just looked at me, like he was confused." Evelyn set her teacup down. "And you stayed in the room?" "I was too shocked to move." "For how long?" "I don't know, maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10. And then?" "I called the number they gave me." Evelyn's eyes narrowed slightly. "They?" Scarlet's heart stopped. She'd made a mistake. "The people who hired me," she said quickly. "I don't know their names. I only ever spoke to one man on the phone." The scarred man to Evelyn's right leaned forward. "You expect us to believe you poisoned Kael Min-jun without knowing who you were working for?" "I didn't care who I was working for." Scarlet's voice rose. "My son was dying. They had the antidote. I would have done anything." The man's expression didn't change. "Even murder." "Yes." Scarlet met his gaze. "Even murder." Silence stretched across the table like a knife blade. Then Evelyn laughed. It was a soft, delicate sound that made Scarlet's skin crawl. "You're either the most honest person I've ever met," Evelyn said, "or the most talented liar." Scarlet said nothing. Evelyn stood up. She moved with the grace of someone who'd spent a lifetime being dangerous. She crossed to Scarlet's side of the table and placed one cold hand on Scarlet's shoulder. "My grandson," Evelyn said quietly, "was a complicated man. Brilliant, ruthless, paranoid. He didn't trust easily." Scarlet forced herself not to flinch under Evelyn's touch. "But he made mistakes," Evelyn continued. "He thought he could leave this life, build something clean, something good." Her fingers tightened on Scarlet's shoulder. "He was wrong." "I don't understand." "You don't need to understand." Evelyn released her and returned to her seat. "You just need to answer one question." Scarlet's throat was dry. "What question?" Evelyn's eyes locked onto hers. "Did Kael Min-jun say my name before he died?" Scarlet's mind raced. This was a test. She could feel it. "No," Scarlet said carefully. "He didn't say anything." Evelyn tilted her head. "Are you certain?" "Yes." "Not even a whisper?" "No." The scarred man leaned back in his chair. "She's lying." Scarlet's pulse spiked. "I'm not—" "He's right." Evelyn's voice remained calm. Kael would never die silently. He would have cursed someone, blamed someone.
He had too much rage inside him to go quietly. Scarlett's entire body went cold. She'd failed. Evelyn was going to kill her. But then Evelyn smiled again. "However," she said, "I believe you're telling the truth about not knowing his final words, because you weren't actually in the room when he died." Scarlett's breath caught. "You found him after," Evelyn continued. "Didn't you? You walked in, saw his body, and panicked." It was a lifeline. Scarlett grabbed it. "Yes," she whispered. "I found him already dead. I lied because I thought you'd blame me if I wasn't there." Evelyn nodded slowly. "That makes more sense." The scarred man didn't look convinced, but he didn't argue. Evelyn gestured to the empty seats at the table. "Join us for dinner, Ms. Vale. We have much to discuss." Scarlett wanted to run. Instead, she stayed. Dinner was an exercise in psychological warfare. Evelyn asked casual questions about Scarlett's life. Where she grew up, how she met her son's father, what she did before becoming a maid. Every answer felt like walking through a minefield. The food was exquisite. Scarlett couldn't taste any of it. Halfway through the meal, Evelyn's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and her expression shifted into something sharp. "Excuse me," she said, standing. "I need to take this." She left the room. The moment the door closed, the scarred man turned to Scarlett. "You're not as clever as you think," he said. Scarlett's fork froze halfway to her mouth. "I know you're lying," the man continued. "I can smell it on you. And when Evelyn figures it out, she's going to peel your skin off while you're still breathing." The younger man beside him smirked. "Victor's dramatic, but he's not wrong." Scarlett set her fork down carefully. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you don't." Victor leaned forward. "Let me give you some advice. Whatever deal you made with whoever's pulling your strings, it's not worth your life. Tell us the truth now, and maybe Evelyn will make your death quick." Scarlett's hands clenched in her lap. She thought about Kale's training. Don't engage, don't defend, just survive. "I've already told you the truth," she said quietly. Victor laughed. "You're either very brave or very stupid." "Both," the younger man said. "Definitely both." The door opened. Evelyn returned, her expression unreadable. She sat down and picked up her wine glass. "Where were we?" "Just getting to know Ms. Vale," Victor said. Evelyn's gaze flicked to Scarlett. "I hope my associates haven't been too harsh." "No," Scarlett lied. "Good." Evelyn sipped her wine. "Because I have a proposition for you." Scarlett's stomach dropped. "What kind of proposition?" "You've proven yourself useful," Evelyn said. "Killing Kale was no small task. That shows initiative, courage, desperation." She set her glass down. "All qualities I value." "I don't understand. I'm offering you a job." Scarlett stared at her. Evelyn smiled. "My organization is expanding. I need people who aren't afraid to get their hands dirty, people who understand that survival requires sacrifice." "I'm not—" Scarlett's voice shook. "I'm not qualified for that kind of work." "You killed one of the most dangerous men on the West Coast," Evelyn said. "I'd say you're overqualified." Victor's expression darkened. "This is a mistake." Evelyn ignored him. "What do you say, Ms. Vale? Would you like to work for me?" Every instinct screamed at Scarlett to refuse, but refusal meant suspicion, and suspicion meant death. "What would I have to do?" Scarlett asked. "Small tasks at first," Evelyn said. "Deliveries, surveillance, nothing too complicated. As you prove yourself, your responsibilities will grow." Scarlett forced herself to nod. "Okay. Excellent." Evelyn stood. "We'll be in touch." The dinner ended. Scarlett was escorted out of the restaurant by the same silent security guards. She didn't breathe properly until she was 3 blocks away. Then she pulled out her phone and called Kyle. He answered on the first ring. "How did it go?" "She offered me a job," Scarlett said, her voice shaking. Silence. Then Kyle's voice, low and dangerous. "Say yes." "Goals." Scarlett returned to the penthouse an hour later to find Kyle waiting in the living room. He wasn't alone. 3 men she didn't recognize stood around the room. All of them looked like they'd been carved from violence. Kale gestured to the couch. "Sit." Scarlett sat. Kale remained standing.
This is Marcus. He pointed to the medic who'd helped stage his death. This is Jin. A man with cold eyes and a scar across his throat nodded. And this is Luca. The third man, younger and leaner, raised 2 fingers in greeting. They're my core team, Kyle said. They know everything. You can trust them. Scarlett didn't feel like she could trust anyone. Evelyn's recruiting you, Kale continued. That's good. It means she doesn't suspect you yet. Victor does, Scarlett said. He told me he knows I'm lying. Kale's jaw tightened. Victor's paranoid, but he's not stupid. We need to move carefully. What do you want me to do? Accept the job. Do exactly what they tell you. Report everything back to me. Kale crossed his arms. You're going to be our eyes inside the syndicate. Scarlett's hands trembled. I'm not a spy. You are now. What if they figure it out? They won't. Kyle's voice was granite. Because I'm going to make sure you're protected every second. Jin spoke for the first time. His voice was rough, like gravel scraping glass. She's a liability. Kale turned to him. She's an asset. She's untrained, scared. One mistake and Evelyn will gut her. Then we make sure she doesn't make mistakes. This is insane, Luca said. We should pull her out now before… No. Kale's voice cut through the room like a blade. We don't have another play. Evelyn's too careful, too paranoid. The only way to get close is from the inside. Marcus stepped forward. He's right. This is our best chance. Jin didn't look convinced, but he didn't argue further. Kale turned back to Scarlett. Can you do this? Scarlett thought about Theo, about the hospital, about the antidote Kale had provided, about how there was no going back anymore. Yes, she whispered. Kale nodded. Good. Your first assignment will come within 48 hours. When it does, follow their instructions exactly. Don't improvise. Don't ask questions. Just do what they tell you. And if something goes wrong, Kyle pulled a small device from his pocket. It looked like a keychain. Press this button twice. We'll come get you. Scarlett took it with shaking hands. Get some rest, Kyle said. You're going to need it. The first assignment came 36 hours later. A text message. No caller ID. Delivery. 1247 Harbor Lane, midnight. Package in locker 34. Take it to 5th and Pine, or leave it in the blue mailbox. Do not open it. Scarlett showed the message to Kyle. He read it twice, then made 3 phone calls. Jin and Luca will shadow you, he said. You won't see them, but they'll be close. What if the syndicate's watching too? They will be. That's the point. They're testing your loyalty. Scarlett's stomach twisted. What's in the package? Nothing good. Kale's expression was dark. But you can't refuse. Not yet. Midnight found Scarlett standing outside a storage facility near the waterfront. The air smelled like salt and rust. Fog rolled in thick off the water, turning streetlights into blurred halos. She found locker 34. The package inside was small, wrapped in brown paper, heavier than it looked. Scarlett didn't open it. She tucked it into her jacket and started walking toward 5th and Pine. The city felt too quiet. Every shadow seemed to hide eyes. Every footstep sounded like pursuit. Halfway to the destination, a car pulled up alongside her. Black sedan, tinted windows. Scarlett's hand went to the panic button in her pocket. The window rolled down. Victor sat in the driver's seat. Get in, he said. Scarlett's heart stopped. I know what you're supposed to do. Get in the car. This wasn't part of the plan. Scarlett glanced around, looking for Jin or Luca. She saw nothing. Victor's expression didn't change. You have 3 seconds before I drag you in. 1. Scarlett opened the door. She got in. Victor drove in silence for 5 blocks. Then he pulled into an empty parking garage and killed the engine. Show me the package, he said. Scarlett pulled it from her jacket. Victor took it, turned it over in his hands, then handed it back. You didn't open it, he said. I was told not to. Most people would have looked. I'm not most people. Victor studied her face. No, you're not. Silence filled the car. Then Victor said, I'm going to ask you a question, and I want the truth. Scarlett's pulse hammered. Okay. Did Kyle Min-jun ever talk about his grandmother? Scarlett's mind raced.
This was a trap. She could feel it. No, she said carefully. We barely spoke. I was just the maid.
He never mentioned her name? No. Never talked about family?
No. Victor's eyes narrowed. You're lying. I'm not. Everyone who worked for Kyle knew about Evelyn. She was his biggest obsession. The fact that you claim you never heard him mention her tells me you're either the worst liar I've ever met, or you're telling the truth about being invisible. Scarlett forced herself to breathe. I was invisible. Victor watched her for a long moment. Then he started the car.
Finish your delivery, he said.
And Scarlett?
Yes?
If you're playing both sides, I'll find out. And when I do, I'll make sure you watch your son die before I kill you. Scarlett's blood turned to ice. Victor smiled. Now get out. She stumbled out of the car. Victor drove away, leaving her alone in the parking garage. Scarlett stood there, shaking, the package clutched against her chest, wondering if she'd just signed her own death warrant. Her phone buzzed. Text from KL, "Are you okay?" Scarlett typed back, "No, where are you? 5th and Pine. About to make the drop. Jin's 2 blocks east. Luca's watching the mailbox. Finish the job. Then come home. Home." The word felt strange. Scarlett walked the remaining blocks to 5th and Pine, found the blue mailbox exactly where they'd said it would be, dropped the package inside. Then she walked away. She didn't look back. What? When Scarlett returned to the penthouse, Kyle was pacing. He stopped the moment she walked through the door. "Victor intercepted you." "How did you know?" "Because we were tracking you the entire time." Kyle gestured to a laptop open on the coffee table. Security footage played across the screen showing Scarlett getting into Victor's car. "What did he say?" Scarlett told him everything. Kale's expression grew darker with every word. "He's testing you," Kyle said when she finished, "trying to break you. He threatened Theo." "I know." Kale's voice was cold. "He won't touch him." "How can you be sure?" "Because Theo's in a private facility now. New location. New security. Victor doesn't even know where to look." Scarlett's knees buckled. She sank onto the couch. "You moved him? When?" "This morning, after you told me about Evelyn's offer." Kyle sat down beside her. "I'm not taking chances." Scarlett wanted to feel relieved. Instead, she just felt exhausted. "How long do I have to keep doing this?" she whispered. Kale was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Until we have enough evidence to destroy Evelyn's entire operation. And if we don't get it, we will." "You keep saying that like you control the universe." Kale's mouth curved slightly. "In this city, I do." Scarlett looked at him, really looked at him. This man who'd saved her son, who'd faked his own death, who'd turned her into a spy and sent her into the lion's den without hesitation. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "I told you. Revenge." "It's more than that." Kale's expression shifted. "What do you want me to say?" "The truth." He was silent for a long time. Then he leaned back against the couch and stared at the ceiling. "When I was 17, he said quietly, I fell in love with a girl named Mira. She was everything Evelyn hated, soft, kind, innocent. She didn't belong in my world." Scarlett's chest tightened. "Evelyn warned me to end it," Kale continued. "Said it made me weak, made me vulnerable. I didn't listen." "What happened?" Kale's jaw clenched. "Evelyn had her killed, made it look like a rival syndicate, but I knew. I've always known." "I'm sorry." "Don't be." Kale's voice was flat. "It taught me the most important lesson of my life." "What lesson?" He finally looked at her. "That love is a weapon," he said, "and the only way to survive is to make sure you're the one holding it." Something in his eyes made Scarlett's breath catch. Before she could respond, his phone rang. Kale answered. "What?" His entire body went rigid. "When?" he demanded. A pause. "How many?" Another pause. Kale stood up. "Lockdown protocol, now." He ended the call and turned to Scarlett. "We need to move," he said. "What's wrong?" "Evelyn just sent a kill team to the hospital where Theo used to be." Scarlett's world tilted. "But you said," "I moved him in time. But this means she knows something's wrong." Kyle grabbed his jacket. "She's testing whether you told the truth about not knowing me."
What do we do? Kale's expression turned lethal. We accelerate the timeline, he said, and we hit her first. The safe house was a warehouse in the industrial district that smelled like rust and old concrete. Kael's team moved through the space with military precision. Jin secured the perimeter. Luca set up surveillance equipment. Marcus unpacked medical supplies like he was expecting casualties. Scarlett stood in the center of it all, numb. Evelyn had sent a kill team to the hospital. That meant everything had changed. Kael was on his phone, barking orders in a language Scarlett didn't understand. Korean, maybe. His voice was cold and clipped, nothing like the measured tone he used with her. This was a different version of him, the version that built an empire on blood. He ended the call and turned to face the room. We're moving up the operation, Kael said. Evelyn's making her play. That means we make ours. Jin looked up from his laptop. We're not ready. We don't have a choice. The infiltration plan needs another week. We don't have another week. Kael's voice was steel. Evelyn knows something's off. She's probing, testing. If we wait, she'll figure out I'm alive. Luca leaned against the wall, arms crossed. So what's the move? Kael pulled up a digital map on the main screen. Evelyn's hosting a private auction tomorrow night. High-level buyers only. Weapons, information, territory rights. How do you know about it? Scarlett asked. Kael glanced at her. Because I was supposed to be there. Before I died. Jin's fingers flew across his keyboard. Security will be insane. Evelyn doesn't do public events without an army. I know. Kael zoomed in on a building layout, which is why we're not going through the front door. He pointed to a service entrance on the east side. The catering company she uses is one I own, Kael said. We'll insert Scarlett as part of the serving staff. Scarlett's stomach dropped. What? You're already on Evelyn's payroll, Kael continued. She won't question seeing you there. You'll plant surveillance devices in her private office during the event. I don't know how to... Marcus will teach you. Kael's tone left no room for argument. You have 18 hours to learn. Jin stood up. This is a suicide mission. No, Kael said. It's a calculated risk. There's no calculation that makes this safe. Safety isn't the objective. Intelligence is. Kael's eyes were dark and focused. We need access to Evelyn's network, her client list, her routes, her vulnerabilities. That office has everything. Luca pushed off the wall. And if Scarlett gets caught, she won't. But if she does... Kael's jaw tightened. Then we extract her. How? By burning the entire building down if we have to. The room went quiet. Scarlett felt everyone's eyes on her. She thought about Theo, about the new facility Kael had moved him to, about how far she'd already come, about how there was no turning back now. I'll do it, she said. Kael nodded once. Good. Marcus, get her prepped. Dad. The next 18 hours were a crash course in espionage. Marcus taught Scarlett how to plant listening devices no bigger than a grain of rice, how to clone RFID cards, how to open locked drawers without leaving marks. He taught her how to lie with her body language, how to smile while your heart was trying to break through your ribs, how to survive. By the time the sun set the following evening, Scarlett felt like she'd aged 10 years. She stood in the warehouse bathroom staring at her reflection. The catering uniform fit perfectly. Black slacks, white button-down shirt, hair pulled back in a neat bun. She looked like someone who belonged at an elite auction. She felt like someone about to walk into a firing squad. Kael appeared in the doorway behind her. You ready? He asked. Scarlett met his eyes in the mirror. No. Good. Confidence will get you killed. Fear will keep you sharp. She turned to face him. What if I mess this up? Kael stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the heat coming off his body. You won't, he said quietly. How do you know? Because you have more to lose than anyone else in this operation. His hand came up, and for a moment Scarlett thought he was going to touch her face. Instead, he adjusted the collar of her shirt. That makes you the most dangerous person in the room. Scarlett's breath caught. Kael stepped back. Jin will be monitoring from a van 2 blocks away. Luca's inside as a buyer. I'll be in the building across the street with a rifle scope on every exit. What about you? Scarlett asked. Won't Evelyn's people recognize you? They think I'm dead. People see what they expect to see. Kale's mouth curved slightly. And right now, they expect a ghost. The auction was held in a renovated gallery in the Pearl District. Scarlett arrived with the catering team at 6:30. The kitchen staff barely glanced at her as she pulled on plastic gloves and started arranging appetizers on silver trays. The space was exactly as Kale had described. High ceilings, exposed brick, art hanging on the walls that probably cost more than small countries, and security everywhere. Men in dark suits standing at every corner, eyes constantly moving, hands resting near concealed weapons. Scarlett kept her head down and her movements efficient, just another invisible server. At 7:15, the guests began arriving. Scarlett recognized some of them from news reports, politicians, CEOs, people who smiled for cameras during the day and bought illegal weapons at night. And then Evelyn Min entered. She wore a crimson dress that looked like liquid fire. Her silver hair was styled in elegant waves. She moved through the crowd like a queen surveying her kingdom. Victor walked 3 steps behind her, his eyes scanning constantly. Scarlett's pulse spiked. She picked up a tray of champagne glasses and stepped into the crowd. "Stay calm," Jin's voice crackled through the tiny earpiece hidden beneath her hair. "You're doing great." Scarlett circulated through the room, offering drinks and hors d'oeuvres while trying not to make eye contact with anyone. After 20 minutes, the auction began. A man in an expensive suit stood at a podium and started describing lots. Military-grade firearms, encrypted communication systems, shipping routes through customs. People bid with casual gestures, like they were buying furniture instead of death. Scarlett used the distraction to slip toward the back hallway where Evelyn's private office was located. A security guard stood outside the door. Scarlett approached with her tray. "Champagne?" The guard glanced at her. "No." "Are you sure? It's the good stuff." "I said no." Scarlett smiled and turned away. Then she stumbled. The tray went flying. Glasses shattered across the marble floor. "Oh God," Scarlett gasped. "I'm so sorry." The guard sighed and grabbed her arm. "Watch where you're going." I'm sorry." Scarlett pulled away, making a show of trying to clean up the mess. The guard bent down to help. That's when Scarlett pressed the cloned RFID card against the door lock. It clicked. The guard didn't notice. Scarlett finished cleaning up the broken glass and hurried back toward the kitchen. "Office is unlocked," she whispered. "Good," Jin said. "Wait for my signal." Scarlett dumped the broken glass in the trash and grabbed a new tray. Her hands were shaking so badly, she almost dropped it. 15 minutes later, Jin's voice crackled in her ear. "Go, now. You have 4 minutes before the next security sweep." Scarlett set down her tray and walked quickly toward the hallway. The guard was gone. She slipped into Evelyn's office and closed the door behind her. The room was smaller than she expected. Elegant. A mahogany desk. Bookshelves lined with leather-bound volumes. A single window overlooking the street. Scarlett pulled the listening devices from her pocket and started placing them exactly where Marcus had instructed. One under the desk, one inside the phone, one behind the frame of a painting. She was reaching for the 4th device when the door opened. Scarlett froze. Victor stood in the doorway. His expression was completely neutral. "I knew it," he said quietly. Scarlett's mind went blank. Victor stepped inside and closed the door behind him. "You're working with Kyle," he said. It wasn't a question. Scarlett's hand went to the panic button in her pocket. Victor moved faster than she could react. He grabbed her wrist and twisted, forcing her to drop the device. "Don't," he said. "You press that button and everyone you love dies tonight." Scarlett's breath came in short gasps. Victor released her wrist and picked up the listening device from the floor. "These are Kyle's," he said, examining it. "I recognize the model. He always did prefer Russian tech." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Stop lying!" Victor's voice was almost gentle. "You've been lying since the moment you walked into that memorial dinner. I've known from the beginning." Scarlett's legs felt weak. "Why didn't you tell Evelyn?" she whispered. Victor smiled faintly. "Because I wanted to see how far you'd go." He circled her slowly, like a predator enjoying the hunt. "Kale faked his death," Victor continued. "Used you as bait. Sent you into Evelyn's organization to gather intelligence. It's actually quite brilliant." "You don't know anything."
I know everything. Victor stopped in front of her. I know Theo's in a private facility on the east side. I know Kael's watching from the building across the street right now. I know Jin's in a van 2 blocks away monitoring your comms. Scarlett's blood turned to ice. How? Because I've been watching all of you. Victor pulled out his phone and showed her the screen. Security footage, multiple angles, the warehouse where Kael's team had been planning, the safe house, the hospital where Theo had been moved. Everything. No, Scarlett whispered. Evelyn doesn't know yet, Victor said, pocketing his phone. She still thinks you're just a useful idiot, but I know the truth. Why are you telling me this? Victor's expression shifted into something almost sad. Because, he said, I want to give you a choice. The door opened again. Evelyn stepped inside. She looked at Victor, then at Scarlett, then at the listening device in Victor's hand. Her expression didn't change. Well, Evelyn said softly, this is disappointing. Scarlett couldn't breathe. Evelyn walked to her desk and sat down, crossing her legs elegantly. Victor told me you were compromised, she said. I didn't want to believe him. I thought maybe you were just clumsy, desperate, but this, she gestured to the device, this is conclusive. Scarlett's mind raced through escape options. There were none. Where is he? Evelyn asked. I don't know what. Where is my grandson? Scarlett's voice caught. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. You're going to tell me, eventually. The only question is how much pain you want to experience first. Victor moved towards Scarlett. She backed up against the wall. Wait, Evelyn said. Victor stopped. Evelyn stood and walked slowly towards Scarlett. Let me tell you something about Kael, she said quietly. He thinks he's smarter than me, thinks he can outmaneuver me, but he's forgotten the most important lesson I ever taught him. She stopped inches from Scarlett's face. Love makes you weak, Evelyn said, and weakness gets you killed. Scarlett's heart hammered. Evelyn smiled. He cares about you. I can see it in the way he's orchestrated this entire operation. He's trying to protect you, save you. That's his mistake. She turned to Victor. Bring me the boy, Evelyn said. Scarlett's entire world shattered. No, don't worry, Evelyn said. I won't hurt him, as long as you give me what I want. Please, tell me where Kael is. Scarlett's vision blurred with tears. She thought about Kael in the building across the street, about Jin in the van, about Luca somewhere in the auction hall, about Theo in that facility, surrounded by guards Kael had promised would keep him safe. I don't know, Scarlett whispered. Evelyn's expression didn't change. She pulled a phone from her pocket and dialed. Bring the child, she said into the phone. Then she ended the call and smiled at Scarlett. We'll see how long your loyalty lasts, she said. They moved Scarlett to a room in the basement. Concrete walls, single chair, flickering overhead light. Victor zip-tied her wrists to the chair arms and stepped back. I'm sorry, he said. Scarlett didn't respond. He left. The door locked behind him. Scarlett sat alone in the silence, her mind spiraling. Evelyn had Theo, or she was about to. Kael's security hadn't been enough. Nothing had been enough. She pulled against the zip ties until her wrist bled. It didn't matter. Time passed. She didn't know how much. Minutes, hours. Then the door opened. A man walked in carrying a laptop. He set it on the floor in front of Scarlett and opened it. Video feed. Scarlett's heart stopped. The screen showed a room she didn't recognize. White walls, medical equipment, and Theo. Her son sat on a hospital bed, confused and scared, looking around for someone he recognized. Scarlett screamed. The man leaned down and pressed unmute on the laptop. Theo's voice came through tinny and small. Mommy? Scarlett sobbed. Theo, where are you? I'm coming, baby. I'm coming. The video feed cut. The man closed the laptop and left. Scarlett sat in the dark, shaking violently, her mind fracturing. Kael had promised. He'd promised Theo would be safe. But promises meant nothing in this world. The door opened again. Evelyn stepped inside. She looked at Scarlett like she was examining an interesting insect. I'll ask you one more time, Evelyn said. Where is Kael? Scarlett's voice was raw. I don't know. Then your son dies. Please, tell me where he is. Scarlett's mind fractured into pieces. She thought about Kael's face when he talked about revenge, about the woman Evelyn had killed, about how he'd drunk poison without hesitation because he'd already replaced it, about how he'd known everything from the beginning. He's in the building across the street, Scarlett whispered. Evelyn smiled. Good girl, she said. She pulled out her phone and made a call. Send the team, she said. Then she hung up and looked at Scarlett. You've just killed the person you were trying to save, Evelyn said softly. How does that feel? Scarlett couldn't answer. Evelyn left. The door locked again. Scarlett sat alone in the dark, her wrists bleeding, her son somewhere in Evelyn's hands, and Kael about to walk into a trap she'd just set. She'd failed everyone, everything. The door opened one more time. Victor stepped inside. He cut the zip ties. Scarlett collapsed forward, gasping. Get up, Victor said. Why? Because I'm getting you out of here. Scarlett looked up at him, confused. Victor pulled her to her feet. I don't work for Evelyn, he said quietly. I work for Kael. Scarlett's mind went blank. What? I've been undercover in the Red Orchid Syndicate for 3 years, Victor said. Kael planted me here after his first attempt to leave the family failed. That's not… You threatened me. I had to. Evelyn watches everyone. If I'd shown you any mercy, she would have known something was wrong. Scarlett's legs gave out. Victor caught her. Where's Theo? Scarlett gasped. Safe. The video was fake. Kael anticipated Evelyn would try to use him. And the building across the street, empty. Kael's not there. He's never been there. Scarlett felt like she was drowning. Where is he? Victor's expression darkened. Right where he needs to be, he said. He pulled Scarlett toward the door. Move. We have about 90 seconds before Evelyn realizes you're gone. They ran through basement corridors, up service stairs, past security checkpoints Victor bypassed with RFID cards. Scarlett didn't know he had. They burst through an exit into an alley. A black van was waiting. The door slid open. Jin sat inside, laptop open, headset on. Get in, he barked. Scarlett climbed inside. Victor followed. The van peeled away from the curb. Scarlett gasped for air, her entire body shaking. Where's Kael? She demanded. Jin didn't look away from his screen. Infiltrating Evelyn's private estate. What? The auction was a distraction, Jin said. While Evelyn's entire security team was focused on the gallery, Kael and Luca hit her real headquarters. Scarlett stared at him. You used me as bait, she whispered. Jin finally looked at her. His expression was cold. Yes. You let Evelyn take me. We let Evelyn think she had you, Jin corrected. Victor was always in position to extract you. My son was never in danger. The facility Kael moved him to doesn't exist on any database. Evelyn couldn't have found it if she'd had a year. Scarlett felt her mind splitting apart. Everything had been a lie. Every fear. Every moment of terror. All of it orchestrated. You bastards, she whispered. Jin turned back to his screen. We're bastards who kept you and your son alive. Victor's phone buzzed. He answered. Yeah. A pause. His expression shifted. Copy that, he said. He ended the call and looked at Jin. Kael's inside Evelyn's vault, Victor said. But there's a problem. What problem? Evelyn knew he was coming. The van went silent. Scarlett's blood turned cold. How? Jin demanded. Victor's jaw tightened. Because someone on our team told her. Everyone looked at Luca. Luca sat in the corner of the van, arms crossed, expression neutral. Don't look at me, he said. You were at the auction, Jin said slowly. You had access to comms. So did all of you. But you're the only one who wasn't accounted for during the extraction, Victor said. Luca's expression didn't change. Prove it. Jin's hand moved toward his gun. Stop, Scarlett said. Everyone turned to look at her. Scarlett's mind raced through everything that had happened. The timeline, the opportunities, the moments when information could have leaked. It's not Luca, she said quietly. How do you know? Victor asked. Scarlett looked at Jin. Because, she said. It's you. Jin's expression didn't change for a long moment. Then he smiled and pulled his gun. Smart girl, he said. The van swerved. Jin shot the driver. The van crashed into a lamppost. Metal crunched. Glass shattered. Scarlet slammed against the wall. When her vision cleared, Jin was standing over her with the gun pointed at her face. Evelyn pays better, Jin said. Nothing personal. Then Victor tackled him. The gun went off. Someone screamed. Scarlet scrambled for the door. Luca grabbed her and pulled her out of the crashed van. Behind them, Victor and Jin fought like animals. Another gunshot. Victor collapsed. Jin stepped out of the van, blood on his face, gun steady. Luca shoved Scarlet behind him. Run, he said. I'm not... Run. Jin raised the gun. Scarlet ran. Behind her, she heard gunfire. She didn't look back. She ran through alleys and side streets, her lungs burning, her mind screaming. Kael was walking into a trap. Jin had betrayed them. Victor might be dead, and she had no way to warn anyone. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered. Hello? Kael's voice, calm, steady. I know, he said. Know what? About Jin, about the trap, about everything. How? Because I've been 3 steps ahead this entire time. Scarlet stopped running. She leaned against a wall, gasping. Where are you? She asked. In Evelyn's vault. She knows you're there. I know she knows. Then why? Because, Kael said, his voice dropping into something dark and final. I wanted her to know. Silence stretched across the line. What did you do? Scarlet whispered. What I should have done 3 years ago. An explosion lit up the night sky. Scarlet turned. Flames erupted from a building on the horizon. Kael. Evelyn's estate just burned to the ground, Kael said, along with every piece of evidence she had on me, every record, every connection, every photograph. Where is she? Right where she needs to be. Another explosion. Bigger. The shockwave rattled windows blocks away. I'm ending this tonight, Kael said. All of it. What about me? Scarlet asked. What about Theo? Kael was silent for a moment. Then he said, There's a car waiting for you 2 blocks north. Take it to the address Jin has in his phone. Luca will meet you there with your son. And you? I'll come find you when this is over. Kael, I promise. The line went dead. Scarlet stood alone in the dark street, watching flames consume the skyline, wondering if she'd just heard Kael Minjun's last words. Wondering if promises meant anything in a world built on lies. She found the car, found the address, found Luca waiting with Theo in his arms. Her son was crying. Scarlet grabbed him and held him so tightly she thought she might break both of them. Mommy, Theo sobbed. I want to go home. Scarlet buried her face in his hair. Me too, baby, she whispered. Me too. But she didn't know where home was anymore. Didn't know if it existed. Didn't know if anything beyond this moment was real. Luca's phone buzzed. He answered, listened. His expression shifted into something Scarlet couldn't read. He ended the call and looked at her. Kael needs you, he said. Where? The estate. What's left of it? Scarlet looked down at Theo. I can't. I'll watch him, Luca said. He'll be safe. Scarlet didn't want to let go. But Kael's voice echoed in her mind. I promise. She kissed Theo's forehead and handed him to Luca. I'll be right back, she said. Then she got in the car and drove toward the fire. Ukinlek. The estate was a graveyard of flame and ash. Fire trucks surrounded the property. Police barriers. News vans. Scarlet parked 3 blocks away and walked through the chaos. No one stopped her. Everyone was too focused on the destruction. She found Kael standing at the edge of the property line, watching the mansion burn. He looked like a ghost painted in orange light. Scarlet stopped beside him. Is she dead? Scarlet asked quietly. Kael didn't answer for a long time. Then he said, No. Scarlet's breath caught. Where is she? Kael turned to look at her. His eyes were empty. Inside, he said. Scarlet stared at the burning building. You left her in there? Yes. She'll die.
I know. Scarlett felt something cold slide down her spine. Kael, she killed Mira, Kael said quietly. She killed everyone I ever tried to love. She poisoned my entire life from the moment I was born. That doesn't mean... Yes, Kael interrupted. It does. He turned back to the fire. I gave her a choice, he said. She could have walked away, started over somewhere far from here. I would have let her go. What did she say? Kael's jaw tightened. She said she'd rather burn than surrender to me. Silence stretched between them. Then Kael said, so I let her burn. Scarlett didn't know what to say. Didn't know if there was anything to say. She just stood beside him and watched the empire collapse into ash. After a long time, Kael said, Jin's dead. Luca killed him after you ran. Scarlett's chest tightened. And Victor? Alive. Barely. Marcus is with him now. What happens now? Kael finally looked at her. Now, he said. You take Theo and disappear. New city, new name, new life. Exactly like I promised. Scarlett's throat closed. What about you? Kael's expression softened in a way she'd never seen before. I have one more thing to finish, he said. What thing? He didn't answer. He just pulled an envelope from his jacket and handed it to her. Bank account information, Kael said. Offshore. Untraceable. Enough money to keep you and Theo comfortable for the rest of your lives. Scarlett stared at the envelope. I don't understand. I'm dying, Scarlett. Kael's voice was gentle. I told you that. The genetic condition. I have maybe 6 months left. Then we'll find a cure. There is no cure. You don't know that. I do. He touched her face, just once, just briefly. But I'm not going to spend my last 6 months running an empire or fighting wars. I'm done. Tears burned down Scarlett's cheeks. Where will you go? Kael smiled faintly. Somewhere quiet, he said. Then he stepped back. Goodbye, Scarlett. Kael, but he was already walking away. Into the smoke. Into the dark. Scarlett stood alone watching him disappear, the envelope clutched in her hand, the fire roaring behind her. And she realized that somewhere along the way, the man she'd been sent to murder had become the only person she couldn't bear to lose. Scarlett didn't leave. She stood in the parking lot 3 blocks from the burning estate, the envelope Kael had given her crumpled in her fist, watching smoke climb into the sky like the city was exhaling its last breath. 6 months. That's all he had left. The thought lodged itself in her chest like shrapnel. She pulled out her phone and called Luca. He answered on the first ring. You need to get out of here. Police are sweeping the area. Where did Kael go? Silence. Luca. I don't know. You're lying. Scarlett. Tell me where he is or I swear I will walk into the nearest police station and tell them everything. More silence. Then Luca exhaled slowly. He has a place. Off-grid. About 40 miles north of the city. Middle of nowhere. Send me the address. He told me not to. Send it. The line went dead. 5 seconds later, her phone buzzed with coordinates. Scarlett looked back at the flames one more time. Then she got in the car and drove. The safe house was a cabin buried in dense forest that looked like it hadn't seen another human being in decades. No lights, no driveway, just a dirt path that disappeared into trees so thick they swallowed the moonlight. Scarlett parked and walked the last quarter mile on foot. Her shoes weren't made for hiking. Her clothes were still stained with ash. Her wrists were raw and bleeding from the zip ties Victor had cut hours earlier. She didn't care. The cabin appeared through the trees like something out of a ghost story. Single story. Rotting porch. Windows dark except for one room where firelight flickered against glass. Scarlett climbed the steps. The wood groaned under her weight. She knocked. No answer. She tried the door. Unlocked. She stepped inside. The interior was sparse. A wood stove burning in the corner. A table. 2 chairs. A cot against the far wall. And Kael. He sat on the floor with his back against the wall, a bottle of whiskey in one hand, staring at nothing. He didn't look up when Scarlett entered. You're supposed to be gone, he said quietly. Scarlett closed the door behind her.
I don't take orders well. I noticed. She crossed the room and sat down on the floor beside him, not touching, just close enough to feel the heat coming off his body. They sat in silence for a long time. Then Kyle said, Evelyn's dead. Scarlett's chest tightened. You're sure? Firefighters found her body an hour ago. His voice was flat, empty. She didn't make it out. How do you feel? Kale took a long drink from the bottle. I don't know. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Scarlett studied his profile, the sharp line of his jaw, the scar through his eyebrow, the tattoos disappearing beneath his shirt collar. He looked exhausted. Looked like a man who'd just won a war and lost everything in the process. What happens now? Scarlett asked. I told you, you disappear, start over. What about you? I already told you that too. You said you had 6 months. That doesn't mean you have to spend them alone. Kyle finally looked at her. His eyes were dark and haunted. Yes, he said quietly. It does. Why? Because everyone I've ever cared about dies. Mira, my parents, the few people in my organization who were actually loyal. He gestured toward her with the bottle. You think I'm going to let that happen to you too? I'm already in this. No, you're out. That's the point. I burned Evelyn's empire to the ground so you could walk away clean. I don't want to walk away. Kyle's jaw tightened. You don't know what you want. Don't tell me what I know. You're traumatized, confused. You've been living in survival mode for months. I know exactly what I'm doing. Scarlett's voice rose. I'm choosing to stay. Why? Because you saved my son. Because you kept your promises when no one else did. Because... She stopped. Kale was staring at her. Because what? He asked softly. Scarlett's throat closed. She couldn't say it. Couldn't put words to the thing that had been building inside her chest for weeks. But Kyle saw it anyway. He always saw everything. Don't, he said. Don't what? Don't do this to yourself. I'm not doing anything. You think you love me. Kale's voice was rough. But you don't. You love the idea of me. The version of me that saved you. That's not real. You don't get to tell me how I feel. I'm telling you the truth. The truth is that you're terrified. Scarlett turned to face him fully. You're dying, and you're alone, and you're too much of a coward to let anyone close enough to care. Kale's expression went cold. Get out. No. Scarlett, make me. They stared at each other. The fire crackled. Rain started drumming against the roof. Then Kale moved. He grabbed Scarlett's face with both hands and kissed her. Hard, desperate, like he was trying to brand the moment into his bones. Scarlett kissed him back with everything she had. All the fear, all the anger, all the nights she'd spent crying alone wondering if she'd survive another day. When they finally broke apart, both of them were shaking. Kyle pressed his forehead against hers. This is a mistake, he whispered. I don't care. I'm going to hurt you. You already have. Kale pulled back slightly. Then why are you still here? Scarlett's hands came up to frame his face. Because, she said, I'd rather have 6 months with you than a lifetime running from what this feels like. Something in Kale's expression cracked. He kissed her again. Slower this time, like he was memorizing the shape of her mouth. When he pulled away, his eyes were wet. I don't know how to do this, he said. Do what? Be with someone, without destroying them. Scarlett's thumb traced the scar through his eyebrow. Then we'll figure it out together. They didn't sleep that night. They talked instead. Kale told her about Mira, about how they'd met in a bookstore when he was 17, about how she'd made him believe he could be something other than a weapon. Scarlett told him about Theo's father, a bartender who'd disappeared the moment she got pregnant, about how she'd raised her son alone for 5 years before the syndicate poisoned him. They traded scars like secrets, physical, emotional, the kind that never fully healed. By the time the sun started bleeding through the windows, Scarlett felt like she'd known Kyle her entire life. Felt like maybe she'd been moving toward this moment since the night she stood in his closet with poison in her hand. Kale was asleep on the cot. Scarlett sat by the window watching dawn turn the forest gold. Her phone buzzed. Luca, Victor's stable, wants to talk to you. Scarlett typed back,
I'm busy. It's important. How important? Red Orchid isn't dead. Scarlett's blood went cold. She called him. Luca answered immediately. Victor's been monitoring chatter from what's left of the syndicate. Evelyn had a contingency plan. What kind of plan? If she died, a data packet gets released to every law enforcement agency on the West Coast. Everything. Client lists, routes, payoffs, names. Scarlett's hand tightened on the phone. When? 72 hours after her death is confirmed. Can we stop it? Only if we find the server it's uploaded to and destroy it before the timer runs out. Where's the server? That's the problem. We don't know. Scarlett looked at Kyle sleeping on the cot. He looked peaceful. For the first time since she'd met him, he looked like he wasn't carrying the weight of an empire on his shoulders. How long do we have? Scarlett asked. 58 hours. Scarlett closed her eyes. I'll call you back. She ended the call, walked to the cot, sat down on the edge. Kale's eyes opened immediately. He'd never really been asleep. What's wrong? He asked. Scarlett told him everything. Kyle listened without interrupting. When she finished, he sat up slowly. Evelyn always had a scorched earth protocol, he said. I knew about it. I just thought I had more time. Can we find the server? Maybe. Kyle ran a hand through his hair. She would have hidden it somewhere she felt safe. Somewhere with sentimental value. Like where? Kyle was quiet for a moment. Then his expression shifted. Her tea house, he said. Ikke. The tea house was in the mountains 2 hours north of Seattle. Traditional architecture, built into the side of a cliff overlooking a valley, surrounded by cherry blossom trees that weren't blooming anymore. Kyle, Scarlett, Victor, and Luca arrived just after noon. The place looked abandoned. No guards, no security, just silence. It's a trap, Victor said flatly. He was leaning heavily on Luca, his torso wrapped in bandages from Jin's bullet. I know, Kyle said, and we're walking into it anyway. Yes, Victor laughed bitterly. You're insane. Probably. They approached the entrance slowly. Kyle moved first, gun drawn, eyes scanning every shadow. Scarlett followed behind him. The interior of the tea house was exactly as she remembered from photographs in Evelyn's office. Elegant, minimalist, bamboo floors, paper screens, a low table in the center of the main room. Empty, too empty. Something's wrong, Luca whispered. Everything's wrong, Kyle said. They moved deeper into the building, through corridors lined with paintings, past rooms filled with antique furniture. Then they reached the basement door, locked. Kyle shot the lock off. The door swung open. Stairs descended into darkness. Stay close, Kyle said. They went down. The basement was larger than the building above. A massive server room filled with humming machines and blinking lights. And in the center of it all stood a woman Scarlett had never seen before. Mid-40s, sharp suit, cold eyes. She smiled when she saw them. Kyle Min-jun, she said. Back from the dead. How dramatic. Kale raised his gun. Who are you? My name is Hannah Park. I was Evelyn's second in command. She gestured around the room. And this is her legacy. You uploaded the data packet, Kyle said. I did. 47 hours from now, every criminal organization on the West Coast will be exposed, including yours. I don't have an organization anymore. Hannah's smile widened. Don't you? She pressed a button. The screens around the room lit up. Security footage, multiple angles, Kyle's safe houses, his hidden accounts, his remaining loyal soldiers, everything. Evelyn documented everything, Hannah said. Every move you made, every person you trusted, every secret you tried to bury. Kale's expression didn't change, but Scarlett saw his finger tighten on the trigger. You can't stop the upload, Hannah continued. The server's encrypted, the timer's autonomous. Even if you kill me, nothing changes. Then why are you here? Kyle asked. To watch you fail. Victor raised his gun. Hannah moved faster. She pressed another button. The room filled with armed men. They poured in from hidden doors. At least 20, all carrying military-grade weapons. Scarlett's heart stopped. Kale didn't hesitate. He fired. The first guard went down. Then everything exploded into chaos. Gunfire ripped through the server room. Sparks flew as bullets shredded machines. Luca dragged Victor behind cover. Scarlet dove behind a server rack as bullets chewed through the air where she'd been standing. Kale moved like death incarnate. He didn't waste shots. Every bullet found a target. Every movement was calculated. He dropped 3 guards in 5 seconds. But there were too many. A bullet grazed his shoulder. He didn't slow down. Another bullet shattered the server rack beside him. He kept moving. Scarlet pulled the small handgun Kyle had given her weeks ago from her jacket. She'd never fired a gun before the training sessions with Marcus. Her hand shook as she aimed. A guard appeared around the corner. Scarlet fired. The recoil nearly broke her wrist, but the bullet hit center mass. The guard collapsed. Scarlet stared at the body. She'd just killed someone. "Move!" Kyle shouted. Scarlet snapped out of it. She ran. Bullets chased her across the room. She dove behind another server rack. Luca was beside her, returning fire with mechanical precision. "We need to get to the main terminal," he shouted over the gunfire. "Where is it?" "Other side of the room." Scarlet looked. 20 feet of open space, at least 6 guards between them and the terminal. Suicide. "I'll cover you," Luca said. "You can't." But Luca was already moving. He stepped out from cover and laid down, suppressing fire. Guards ducked. Scarlet ran. Her legs burned. Her lungs screamed. Bullets tore through the air inches from her head. She didn't stop. She reached the terminal and slammed into it. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. She didn't know what she was doing. She just pressed buttons and prayed. A guard appeared beside her. Scarlet grabbed the keyboard and swung it. It connected with his face. He went down. She grabbed his gun, aimed, fired. Another guard fell. Behind her, Kyle was bleeding from multiple wounds, but he was still standing, still fighting. Victor had collapsed against the wall, barely conscious. Luca was reloading when a bullet caught him in the leg. He went down screaming. Hannah stood in the center of the chaos, smiling. "You can't win," she shouted. Kale turned to look at her. His eyes were empty. "Watch me," he said. He raised his gun, aimed at the main server, and fired. Once, twice, 3 times, the server exploded. Flames erupted across the room. The sprinkler system activated. Water poured down. Hannah's smile vanished. "No!" Kale fired again. Another server exploded. Then another. The entire room was burning now. Smoke filled the air. Guards scattered. Hannah screamed. Kale walked toward her through the chaos like a ghost. He grabbed her by the throat and lifted her off the ground. "Where's the backup?" he demanded. Hannah choked. "There isn't one." "You're lying." "I'm not." Evelyn didn't trust backups. She kept everything here. Kyle's grip tightened. Hannah's face turned purple. "Kale!" Scarlet shouted. He didn't respond. "Kale, stop!" His fingers squeezed harder. Hannah's eyes rolled back. Scarlet grabbed his arm. "She's not worth it," Scarlet said. Kale looked at her. For a moment, Scarlet thought he wouldn't listen. Then he dropped Hannah. She collapsed, gasping. Kale turned to Scarlet. "We need to go," he said. They grabbed Victor and Luca and fought their way toward the stairs. Behind them, the server room was engulfed in flames. The entire building was collapsing. They burst through the basement door just as the floor gave way, ran through corridors filling with smoke, made it outside as the tea house exploded. The shockwave threw them forward. Scarlet hit the ground hard. Her vision blurred. When it cleared, the tea house was gone. Just fire and rubble. Kyle was beside her, covered in blood and ash. Victor was unconscious. Luca was barely breathing. Scarlet pulled herself to her feet, grabbed Kyle's arm. "Can you walk?" she asked. Kale nodded. Together they dragged Victor and Luca to the car, piled inside. Kyle drove. His hands were shaking. Blood dripped from at least 3 wounds. But he didn't stop. They made it 5 miles before Luca said quietly, "We got it." Everyone looked at him. He held up a hard drive. "I pulled it from the main terminal before the explosion," he said. Everything Evelyn had, all the data. Scarlet's breath caught. Kale pulled over, took the hard drive, stared at it for a long moment. Then he got out of the car, walked to the edge of the road, and smashed it against a rock until it was nothing but fragments. He came back to the car, sat down, and drove. They made it back to the cabin just before dark. Marcus was waiting. He took one look at them and started barking orders. Victor needed surgery, Luca needed stitches, Kael needed both. Scarlett sat on the porch while Marcus worked inside, staring at nothing. Her hands were covered in blood. Not hers. She didn't know whose. The door opened. Kael stepped out. His torso was wrapped in bandages. His arm was in a sling. He looked like he'd been through a war. He had. He sat down beside Scarlett without a word. They watched the sun set through the trees. After a long time, Kael said, "It's over." Scarlett looked at him. "Is it?" Evelyn's dead, the syndicate's scattered, the data's destroyed. He leaned his head back against the wall. "It's over." "What about the people who worked for her, the buyers, the networks?" "They'll find someone else to work with. They always do. But they won't come after me. I'm a ghost now." Scarlett's chest tightened. "And us?" she asked quietly. Kael turned to look at her. His eyes were softer than she'd ever seen them. "I don't know," he said honestly. "That's not good enough. It's all I have." Scarlett took his hand. "Then we'll figure out the rest," she said. Kael's fingers tightened around hers. They sat in silence as darkness fell. Inside, Marcus was saving Victor's life. Luca was sleeping off the pain medication. Somewhere in the city, Theo was safe with the protection Kael had arranged. And for the first time in months, Scarlett felt like she could breathe. The war was over. But the hardest part was just beginning. Learning how to live after surviving. Learning how to love after losing everything. Learning how to be human again. Kael's phone buzzed. He pulled it out with his free hand. "Read the message." His expression shifted. "What is it?" Scarlett asked. Kael showed her the screen. DNA results confirmed. Rare genetic marker match. Compatibility 99.8%. Transplant viable. Scarlett's breath caught. "What does this mean?" Kael's voice was rough. "It means your blood can cure me." "Then take it." "It's not that simple." "Yes, it is." Scarlett turned to face him fully. "You saved my son. You saved me. Let me save you. The procedure's experimental, dangerous. You could—" "I don't care. Scarlett, I love you." The words hung in the air between them. Kael stared at her. "You don't mean that," he said quietly. "Yes, I do. You've known me for 3 months. I've known you long enough." Kael's jaw tightened. "I'm not a good man," he said. "I don't care. I've killed people, destroyed lives, built an empire on suffering. I know exactly who you are." Scarlett's voice was steady. "And I love you anyway." Kael looked like she'd just shot him. His hand came up to cup her face. "I don't deserve you," he whispered. "Probably not. I'm going to mess this up." "Probably. I don't know how to do this." Scarlett kissed him. When she pulled back, she said, "Then we'll learn together." Kael's eyes were wet. He pulled her against his chest, held her like she was the only thing keeping him anchored to the world. "Okay," he whispered into her hair. "Okay what?" "Okay, I'll do the procedure. I'll try to live." Scarlett's arms tightened around him. "For me?" she asked. Kael pulled back slightly, looked her in the eyes. "For us," he said. The procedure was scheduled for 3 days later. Marcus had a contact, a doctor who specialized in experimental genetic therapies. Off the books. Expensive, dangerous, but possible. Scarlett spent those 3 days with Theo. She held him, played with him, read him stories about dinosaurs and pirates, tried not to think about the fact that the procedure could kill her, that even if it worked, she'd be giving up part of herself to save Kael. On the morning of the surgery, Theo looked up at her with wide eyes. "Are you going away again?" he asked. Scarlett's throat tightened. "Just for a little while," she said. "Promise you'll come back?" "I promise." Theo studied her face. Then he said, "Is Kael coming back too?" Scarlett blinked. "You know about Kael?" "Luca told me. He said Kael's the one who made me better." Scarlett's chest ached. "Yeah," she said. "He is." "Is he nice?" Scarlett thought about Kael. About the man who drunk poison without hesitation. who'd faked his death to protect her, who'd burned his grandmother's empire to the ground. He's complicated, she said. Theo nodded like that made sense. I want to meet him, he said. Scarlett smiled. Maybe someday. The surgery took 6 hours. Scarlett woke up in a private clinic that looked more like a bunker than a hospital. Her entire body ached. Marcus was sitting beside her bed. How do you feel? He asked. Like I got hit by a truck. That's normal. Scarlett tried to sit up. Pain lanced through her chest. Marcus pushed her back down gently. Don't move yet, he said. Where's Kael? Marcus hesitated. Marcus. He's in recovery. The transplant went well, but his body's fighting the integration. Scarlett's blood went cold. What does that mean? It means we won't know if it worked for another 48 hours. I want to see him. You can't. Not yet. You need to rest. Scarlett ripped the IV out of her arm. Marcus swore and tried to stop her. She pushed past him. Her legs barely held her weight. She stumbled down the hallway, following the sound of machines. Found Kael's room. He was unconscious. Tubes and wires connected to every part of his body. Monitors beeped steadily. Scarlett collapsed into the chair beside his bed, grabbed his hand. Don't you dare die on me, she whispered. Kael didn't respond. Scarlett sat there for 2 days. Marcus brought her food. She didn't eat, brought her water. She barely drank. She just sat, holding Kael's hand, watching his chest rise and fall, waiting. On the 3rd day, his eyes opened. Scarlett's breath caught. Hey, Kael said. His voice was rough, raw. Scarlett couldn't speak. Tears poured down her face. Kael's hand tightened around hers. Did it work? He asked. Marcus appeared in the doorway. He was smiling. Your blood works clean, Marcus said. The genetic markers are integrating. You're going to live. Kael closed his eyes. A single tear slid down his cheek. How long? He asked. We won't know for sure until we run more tests, but if this continues... Marcus paused. Maybe decades. Kael's hand trembled in Scarlett's. She leaned forward, pressed her forehead against his. You're going to be okay, she whispered. We're going to be okay, Kael corrected. Scarlett kissed him, soft, gentle, like they had all the time in the world, because maybe now they did. Mat. 6 weeks later, Scarlett stood in the cabin watching Kael teach Theo how to skip stones across the lake. The boy laughed every time a stone bounced. Kael smiled, not the cold, calculating expression Scarlett had seen in the penthouse. A real smile, the kind that made him look years younger. Scarlett's hand drifted to her stomach. She hadn't told him yet, hadn't found the right moment, but she would. Soon. Victor appeared beside her, leaning on a cane. You did good, he said. Did I? You saved him. Not just his life. Him. Scarlett watched Kael pick Theo up and spin him around. The boy shrieked with joy. He saved me first, she said. Victor smiled faintly. That's how it works, he said. The sun was setting, painting the lake gold. Kael looked up and caught Scarlett's eye. He smiled. She smiled back. And for the first time in her life, Scarlet Vale felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The war was over. The empire was ash. But what they'd built from the ruins, that was just beginning. The peace lasted exactly 11 days. Scarlet woke to the sound of breaking glass. Her hand went immediately to the nightstand where Kael kept a loaded gun. Her fingers closed around cold metal. Beside her, Kael was already moving, silent and lethal, even half asleep. He pressed a finger to his lips. Scarlett nodded. They'd drilled for this. Practiced scenarios where the past came back to collect debts they thought had been paid. Kael moved to the bedroom door. Scarlett followed 3 steps behind, exactly like he'd taught her. The hallway was dark. No sound except the wind through the broken window downstairs. Too quiet. Kael's hand signals were sharp, clear. Stay behind me. Watch the corners. Don't hesitate. They descended the stairs like ghosts. The living room was empty. The kitchen was empty. Then they reached Theo's room. The door was open.
Kael's entire body went rigid. He stepped inside. Scarlett's heart stopped when she saw the empty bed. Blankets thrown back, window open, cold air pouring in, and a note pinned to the pillow with a knife. Kael grabbed it. Read it once. His expression turned to stone. He handed it to Scarlett. The handwriting was elegant, precise. You killed the queen. But the empire never dies. If you want the boy back, come alone. The old cement factory on Harbor Road, midnight. Tell anyone, and he disappears forever. DV. Scarlett's hand shook so badly the paper rustled. DV, she whispered. Kael's jaw was tight enough to crack teeth. Damon Vale, he said. Your brother. The rage came first, hot and blinding and all-consuming. Scarlett wanted to scream, wanted to destroy something, wanted to find Damon and tear him apart with her bare hands. But Kael grabbed her shoulders before she could spiral. Breathe, he said. He took my son. I know. We have to. We will. Kael's voice was granite, but not like this, not emotional, not stupid. Scarlett forced air into her lungs. Kael was right. He was always right about violence. He said, come alone, Scarlett said. I know what he said. So what do we do? Kael's eyes were dark and calculating. We give him exactly what he wants, he said, and then we take everything from him. Shit. Victor arrived 20 minutes later with Luca close behind. Both of them looked like they'd been dragged through hell and were ready to go back for another round. Kael had already pulled up building schematics of the old cement factory on his laptop. The place was massive. Multiple floors, dozens of rooms, hundreds of places to hide, or to spring a trap. Damon Vale, Victor said, reading the note. The gambling addict who sold his sister to the Red Orchid Syndicate. That's him, Scarlett said. I thought he disappeared after Evelyn died. Apparently not. Luca leaned over the laptop. This place is a nightmare. Too many variables, too much open space. That's the point, Kael said. He wants me isolated, vulnerable. So we don't give him that. Victor pulled out his phone. I can have a team in position within the hour. No. Kael's voice was final. He said, come alone. If he sees anyone else, Theo's dead. Then what's the play? Kael zoomed in on this factory layout. Scarlett goes in the front, he said. I go in through the sewage tunnel on the east side. Victor and Luca provide overwatch from the buildings across the street. Scarlett's stomach twisted. You want to use me as bait? I want to give Damon what he expects while controlling every other variable. What if he kills me the moment I walk in? Kael looked at her. His expression was unreadable. He won't, he said quietly, because you're the only leverage he has. He needs you alive to draw me out. And what happens when he realizes you're already inside? Kael's mouth curved into something cold and predatory. Then I kill him, he said simply. Midnight came too fast. Scarlett stood outside the cement factory wearing a bulletproof vest under her jacket and a wire taped to her ribs. Kael's voice crackled through the earpiece hidden in her ear. I'm in position. Victor and Luca have eyes on every exit. You're covered. Scarlett's hands were shaking. She forced them still. I'm going in, she said. Stay calm. Follow the plan. I'll be right behind you. Scarlett pushed through the rusted front door. The interior of the factory was exactly as nightmarish as she'd imagined, concrete pillars rising into darkness, broken machinery scattered across the floor, the smell of mold and decay thick enough to choke on. And in the center of the main floor, lit by a single camping lantern, sat Damon Vale. He looked worse than Scarlett remembered, thinner, grayer, hollow-eyed, and desperate. But he was smiling. Hey, sis, he said. Scarlett's rage boiled over. She started toward him. Stop, Damon said. He pulled a gun from his jacket and aimed it at something behind him. Scarlett froze. Theo was tied to a chair in the shadows, duct tape over his mouth, eyes wide with terror. Don't, Scarlett whispered. Damon's smile widened. Sit down. Scarlett sat on the floor 10 feet away from him. Damon kept the gun trained on Theo. You look good, he said. Better than the last time I saw you. Being a mafia boss's whore must pay well. Where's Kyle? Damon asked.
I came alone. Bullshit. You told me to come alone, so I did. Damon laughed. You're lying. Kyle Minjun doesn't let anyone he owns walk into danger without backup. He doesn't own me. Sure he does. That's how men like him work. They save you, protect you, make you feel safe. And then they own every piece of you until there's nothing left. Scarlett's jaw tightened. You don't know anything about him. I know he killed Evelyn Min. I know he destroyed the Red Orchid Syndicate. I know he's the reason I lost everything. You lost everything because you're a coward who gambles away money you don't have and sells out your own family to pay your debts. Damon's expression darkened. Careful, sis. Or what? You'll shoot me? You'll shoot Theo? Scarlett's voice rose. You already poisoned him once. What's one more betrayal? I didn't have a choice. You always have a choice. Scarlett's scream echoed through the factory. You could have come to me, asked for help. We could have figured something out together. You didn't have any money. I would have found a way. There was no way. Damon stood up, the gun shaking in his hand. The people I owed weren't the kind you negotiate with. They wanted blood. And if I didn't give them yours, they would have taken mine. So you chose yourself. Of course I chose myself, Damon's voice cracked. That's what survivors do. We save ourselves first. Scarlett stared at her brother. This man who'd once taught her how to ride a bike, who'd held her when their mother died, who'd promised he'd always protect her, and she realized he was already gone. The brother she'd loved had died years ago. This was just a ghost wearing his face. You're right, Scarlett said quietly. Survivors do save themselves first. She pulled the gun from her jacket and aimed it at Damon's chest. Damon blinked. You won't shoot me. You don't know that. You're not a killer, Scarlett. You're too soft, too weak. You always have been. I killed 3 people to protect Kyle, Scarlett said. Her voice was steady now. I'll kill you to protect my son. Damon's gun swung toward Theo. Then your son dies with me. A gunshot cracked through the factory. Damon's gun flew from his hand. He screamed and clutched his bleeding wrist. Kale stepped out of the shadows behind Theo's chair, gun raised, expression cold. You should have taken the deal Evelyn offered you, Kyle said. Walk away, disappear, live whatever pathetic life you had left. Damon stumbled backward. I didn't know she offered. She did, 3 months ago, before she died. She told you to leave Seattle and never contact your sister again. Damon's eyes went wide. But you couldn't do it, Kale continued, because walking away meant admitting you'd lost, and men like you would rather die than admit defeat. I just wanted what was owed to me. Nothing is owed to you. Kale's voice was ice. You sold your sister, poisoned your nephew, destroyed your own family for gambling debts. The syndicate forced me. No one forced you to do anything. You made choices. Now you live with the consequences. Kale aimed at Damon's head. Wait, Scarlett said. Kale paused. Scarlett stood up, walked slowly toward her brother. Damon was crying now, pathetic and broken. Please, he whispered. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Scarlett looked at him for a long moment. Then she turned to Kyle. Give me the gun, she said. Kale's expression didn't change. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. Scarlett, he's my brother, my blood, my responsibility. She held out her hand. Give me the gun. Kyle studied her face. Then he handed her the weapon. Scarlett turned back to Damon. He was still crying. I loved you, Scarlett said quietly. When we were kids, before everything fell apart, I looked up to you. I thought you were the strongest person I knew. Scarlett, but you're not strong. You're weak. And your weakness almost killed my son. She raised the gun. Damon's eyes went wide. Please, go, Scarlett said. Damon blinked. What? Get out of Seattle, tonight. If I ever see you again, if you ever contact me or Theo or anyone I love, I will hunt you down and I will finish this. You're letting me go? I'm giving you the same choice Evelyn gave you. Don't waste it. Damon stared at her. Then he scrambled to his feet and ran, disappeared into the darkness. Gone. Scarlett lowered the gun. Her entire body was shaking. Kyle walked to Theo and cut the ropes. The boy launched himself at Scarlett. She caught him and held him so tightly she thought she might break his ribs. "It's okay, baby," she whispered. "You're safe. I've got you." Theo sobbed into her shoulder. Kyle stood a few feet away, giving them space. After a long moment, Theo pulled back and looked at Kale. "Are you the one who made me better?" he asked. Kale crouched down to eye level. "Yeah," he said. "I am." Theo studied his face. Then he threw his arms around Kale's neck. Kale froze. He looked at Scarlett over Theo's shoulder. She smiled through her tears. Slowly, carefully, Kale's arms came up to hold the boy. And something in his expression cracked open. Something human. Something that looked almost like hope. They left the factory together. Victor and Luca met them outside with the van. No one spoke during the drive back to the cabin. Theo fell asleep against Scarlett's chest. Kyle stared out the window at the passing city lights. When they finally arrived, Marcus was waiting with hot coffee and blankets. They put Theo to bed. Scarlett sat beside him until his breathing evened out. Then she found Kyle on the back porch. He was leaning against the railing, staring at the lake. Scarlett stood beside him. "You could have killed Damon," she said quietly. "I know." "Why didn't you?" Kale was silent for a long time. Then he said, "Because it wasn't my decision to make. He deserved to die." "Maybe. But that was your choice, not mine." Scarlett looked at him. "You're different," she said. "How?" "6 months ago, you would have killed him without hesitation." Kale's mouth curved slightly. 6 months ago, I didn't have a reason not to. And now, he turned to face her. "Now I have you," he said simply. Scarlett's breath caught. Kale took her hand. "I've spent my entire life being a weapon," he said. "Being the thing people feared, the monster in expensive suits who solved problems with violence." "You're not a monster." "I was. For a long time, that's all I was." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "But you looked at me and saw something else." "I saw a man trying to survive, same as me." "You saw someone worth saving." Scarlett's eyes burned. "You saved yourself," she said. "I just gave you a reason to want to." Kale pulled her close, wrapped his arms around her like she was the only thing keeping him tethered to the world. "I love you," he said into her hair. It was the first time he'd said it. Scarlett's arms tightened around him. "I love you too," she whispered. They stood there for a long time, two broken people who'd found each other in the wreckage. Eventually, Kyle pulled back. "There's something I need to tell you," he said. Scarlett's stomach twisted. "What?" "The genetic treatment Marcus gave me. The one using your blood." "What about it?" "It's not just keeping me alive, it's changing me, rewriting parts of my DNA." Scarlett frowned. "Is that bad?" "I don't know yet. Marcus is still running tests, but there's a chance." He paused. "There's a chance it could affect any children I have. Genetically." Scarlett's hand drifted unconsciously to her stomach. Kale noticed. His eyes went wide. "Are you—" "I don't know. Maybe. I haven't taken a test yet." Kale stared at her. "When did you—" "I think about 6 weeks ago. Right after the surgery." Silence. Then Kale sank down onto the porch steps, put his head in his hands. Scarlett sat beside him. "Talk to me," she said. "I don't know how to be a father." "Neither do I, and I've been doing it for 5 years." "That's different." It's not." Scarlett took his hand. "We're both terrified. We're both making it up as we go. But we're doing it together." Kale looked at her. "What if I mess them up?" he asked quietly. "What if they grow up and realize their father was a killer? Then we'll tell them the truth, that you were a killer who chose to become something better." "Is that enough?" "It has to be." Kale was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I want this. I want you. I want a family. I want all of it. Even though it terrifies you, especially because it terrifies me." He pulled her against him. "I've spent my whole life being afraid of nothing. Maybe it's time I learned what real fear feels like." Scarlett smiled against his chest.
Real fear is loving someone so much you'd burn the world down to keep them safe. Then I've been afraid for months. They sat together watching the sun rise over the lake. And for the first time in both their lives, the future didn't look like a threat. It looked like a promise. 3 months later, Scarlett stood in a small courthouse in a town so far off the grid, it didn't even have a name on most maps. She wore a simple white dress. No veil, no flowers, just her. And Kyle in a black suit that made him look less like a mafia boss and more like someone's husband. Theo stood between them, holding the rings Marcus had helped him pick out. Victor and Luca sat in the front row. The judge was a woman in her 70s who'd seen enough of life not to ask questions about the couple standing before her. Do you, Kael Min-jun, take Scarlett Vale to be your lawfully wedded wife? Kael looked at Scarlett. I do, he said. And do you, Scarlett Vale, take Kael Min-jun to be your lawfully wedded husband? Scarlett smiled. I do. Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. Kael leaned in, kissed her soft and slow, like they had all the time in the world. Theo made a disgusted sound. Everyone laughed. The ceremony ended. They walked out into the sunshine. Scarlett's hand rested on her barely visible stomach. 3 months along. They hadn't told anyone yet, except Marcus. But soon, Kael noticed where her hand was. He covered it with his own. You ready for this? He asked. Absolutely not. Good. Me neither. They got into the car. Theo climbed into the back seat. Where are we going? He asked. Kael looked at Scarlett. She looked back at him. Somewhere quiet, Kael said. Somewhere safe. Somewhere no one will find us. Like a secret hideout? Exactly like that. Theo's eyes lit up. Cool. They drove north, away from the city, away from the empire, away from everything they'd been, toward everything they were becoming. Ikit. The house was small, 2 stories, white paint, blue shutters, a porch that wrapped around the front, surrounded by forest so thick you couldn't see another building for miles. It looked like something out of a storybook. Kael had bought it 6 weeks earlier under a name that didn't exist on any database. A ghost buying a house for other ghosts. They moved in slowly, unpacked boxes filled with the fragments of their old lives. Theo's dinosaur toys, Scarlett's books, Kael's single photograph of Mira that he still couldn't bring himself to throw away. Marcus visited once a month to monitor Kael's health. The genetic treatment was holding. His blood tests came back clean. The disease was gone. Victor and Luca came by occasionally. They never talked about the past, never mentioned Evelyn or the Red Orchid Syndicate or the bodies they'd buried. They just sat on the porch and drank whiskey and pretended they were normal people with normal lives. It almost worked. 6 months after they moved in, Scarlett gave birth to a girl. 8 pounds, 10 fingers, 10 toes, dark hair like Kael's, gray eyes like Scarlett's. They named her Mira. Kael cried when he held her, silent tears that he didn't bother hiding. She's perfect, he whispered. She's ours, Scarlett said. Theo was obsessed with his baby sister. He sat beside her crib for hours, making up stories about dinosaurs and princesses. Kael taught him how to skip stones, how to build fires, how to survive, but also how to be gentle, how to protect things without destroying them, how to be strong and kind at the same time. Scarlett watched them from the porch, her heart so full it hurt. This man who'd been a weapon his entire life was learning how to be a father, and he was good at it. One evening, after the kids were asleep, Scarlett found Kael in his study. He was staring at a laptop screen, financial reports, investment portfolios, business acquisitions. I thought you were done with all that, Scarlett said. Kael looked up. I am. This is different. How? It's legitimate, clean, no blood money, no weapons, no smuggling. He gestured to the screen. Real estate, tech startups, renewable energy. Scarlett sat down beside him. You're building a new empire. I'm building a legacy. Kael closed the laptop. Something our kids can inherit without shame. You think they'll want it? I don't know, but I want to give them the choice. Scarlett leaned her head on his shoulder. You're a good man, she said. I'm trying to be. That's enough.
They sat in silence for a while. Then Kael said, "Do you ever regret it?" "Regret what?" "Staying, choosing this life, choosing me." Scarlett pulled back to look at him. "Every single day," she said. Kael's expression fell. Scarlett smiled. "I regret that I didn't choose you sooner, that I wasted time being afraid, that I almost let you walk away." Kael's breath caught. "But I don't regret loving you," Scarlett continued. "I don't regret our family. I don't regret any of this." Kael kissed her, deep and slow and full of all the things he didn't know how to say. When they finally pulled apart, he said, "I used to think love was a weakness, something Evelyn could use against me. And now? Now I think it's the only thing that ever made me strong." 5 years passed. Theo was 10, Mira was 5, and Scarlett was pregnant again. Twins this time. Marcus said it was a side effect of the genetic treatment. Kael's modified DNA was hyperactive. Scarlett said it was karma for all the trouble he'd caused in his previous life. Kael said he didn't care as long as everyone stayed healthy. The house had expanded. New rooms, new additions, a playground in the backyard, a treehouse Kael and Theo had built together. Victor had retired completely, moved to a cabin 2 miles away. He came by for dinner every Sunday. Luca had taken over what was left of Kael's organization, turned it into a private security firm. Legitimate, licensed, clean. He still called Kael for advice. Kael always answered. Marcus had published 3 papers on genetic therapy using Kael's case study. Anonymous, of course, but groundbreaking. And somewhere in Seattle, in a hospital that treated children for free, a foundation operated under Mira's name. Funded by Kael's investments. Saving kids like Theo used to be. One evening, Scarlett found Kael on the porch. Theo was teaching Mira how to skip stones. The sunset painted everything gold. "You look happy," Scarlett said. Kael smiled. "I am." "Do you miss it? The empire? The power?" Kael was quiet for a moment. "Sometimes," he admitted. "But then I look at this," he gestured to the kids, to the house, to Scarlett, "and I realize I traded one kind of power for something better." "What's that?" "Peace." Scarlett took his hand. They sat together watching their children play. And Kael thought about the night Scarlett had stood in his closet with poison in her hand, how he'd drunk it without hesitation, how he'd known even then that this woman would either destroy him or save him. She'd done both, destroyed the man he'd been, saved the man he could become. Later that night, after the kids were asleep, Scarlett found Kael in the nursery. He was painting the walls, soft blue on one side, pale yellow on the other. "You're nesting," she said. Kael looked up. Paint streaked across his forearms. "Is that what this is?" "Yes." "I thought only pregnant people nested." "It's contagious." Kael smiled and went back to painting. Scarlett sat in the rocking chair and watched him work. "Do you ever think about Evelyn?" she asked quietly. Kael's brush paused. Then he continued painting. "Sometimes," he said. "Do you regret how it ended?" "No." His voice was firm. "She made her choice. She chose power over everything else, even her own life. And you chose differently." "I chose you." Kael set down the brush and walked over to her. He crouched down beside the chair. "I chose this family, this life. I chose to be something more than what she made me." Scarlett's hand came up to touch his face. "I'm proud of you," she said. Kael's eyes closed. "Say that again." "I'm proud of you." A shudder ran through him. "No one's ever said that to me before." "Then I'll say it every day for the rest of our lives." Kael leaned forward and kissed her stomach, felt the twins kick against his palm. "I love you," he whispered to them, "and I promise I'll be better than the man I used to be." Scarlett's fingers ran through his hair. "You already are," she said. The twins were born on a Tuesday morning in early spring, a boy and a girl, both healthy, both perfect. They named the boy Jin, after the man who'd betrayed them, because Kael said redemption meant remembering that even traitors had been human once. They named the girl Evelyn, after Kael's grandmother, Because Scarlett said forgiveness meant choosing to remember people for who they could have been instead of who they became. Kyle held both of them in his arms and cried. Again, he'd become good at crying, at letting himself feel things without armor. Theo and Mira crowded around to see their new siblings. "They're so small," Mira whispered. "You were small once too," Scarlett said. "Was I this small?" "Smaller." Mira's eyes went wide. The nurse came in to check on the babies. She smiled at the family. "You all look so happy," she said. Kale looked at Scarlett, at Theo, at Mira, at the twins sleeping peacefully in his arms. "We are," he said, and he meant it. Years passed. The kids grew. Theo went to college, studied medicine, wanted to save people the way Kale and Scarlett had saved him. Mira became an artist, painted murals on buildings, bright and bold and full of life. Jen and Evelyn were still young, still figuring out who they wanted to be. But they were good kids. Kind. Strong. Unafraid. Kale's health remained stable. The genetic treatment had worked. He'd lived long past the 6 months the doctors had given him, long enough to see his children grow, long enough to build a life worth living. One evening, Kyle and Scarlett sat on the porch. Their hair was grayer now, their hands were weathered, but they were together. "Do you remember the night we met?" Scarlett asked. Kale smiled. "You mean the night you tried to poison me?" "That's the one. How could I forget? Would you do it again, knowing everything that came after?" Kale thought about it. About the pain, the blood, the war, about the family they had built from the ashes. "Yes," he said, "every single time." Scarlett leaned her head on his shoulder. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over the lake, and Kyle realized something he'd never believed possible. He was happy. Not the temporary kind of happiness that came from winning a fight or closing a deal, but the deep, bone-settled kind that came from knowing you were exactly where you belonged. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what? For not killing me when you had the chance." Scarlett laughed. "Thank you for drinking the poison anyway." Kyle kissed the top of her head. "Best decision I ever made." They stayed there until the stars came out. Two people who'd found each other in the darkest moment of their lives. Two people who'd chosen love over survival, who'd chosen family over empire, who'd chosen to build something beautiful from the ruins. Inside the house, the kids were laughing, playing some game that involved too much noise and not enough supervision. Kale started to get up. Scarlett pulled him back down. "Let them be kids," she said. "Someone's going to break something. Probably. We should sit here and enjoy the quiet while we have it." Kale settled back into his chair. Scarlett was right. She usually was. They sat together as the night deepened, and somewhere in the distance, Seattle glittered like a broken promise they'd finally escaped. The empire was gone. The war was over. The poison had been replaced with something sweeter. And the woman Kyle was supposed to kill had become the only reason he'd ever really wanted to live. Ugh. 20 years later, Scarlett stood at Kyle's bedside in the same house they'd built their life in. He was dying. Not from the genetic disease, just from time, from a life fully lived. The kids were all there. Theo with his wife and 2 children, Mira with her partner, Jen and Evelyn, grown now, successful in their own right, and grandchildren. So many grandchildren. The house was full of noise and life and love. Kale squeezed Scarlett's hand. "Not bad," he whispered. "Not bad for what?" "For a killer, and the woman who tried to poison him." Scarlett smiled through her tears. "We did okay," she said. "Better than okay." Kale's breathing was getting shallower. Scarlett leaned in close. "I love you," she said. "I love you too." Kale's eyes were still bright despite everything. "Thank you for saving me." "You saved yourself." "No." His hand tightened on hers. "You did. The moment you couldn't pull the trigger, the moment you chose to see me as human instead of a monster, that's when my life really started." Scarlett kissed him. One last time. "I'd do it all again," she whispered. "Me too." Kale closed his eyes and smiled and let go. They buried him on the property, under the oak tree where he'd taught Theo how to skip stones, where Mira had painted her first mural, Where Jen and Evelyn had built their first fort, the entire family gathered. Victor came. Old and gray, but still standing. Luca came with his husband. Marcus came with research papers dedicated to Kael's memory. And Scarlett stood at the grave and told stories about the night they met, about the poison, about the empire they'd burned down, about the family they'd built, about a man who'd started as a weapon and ended as a father, about love that survived war. The kids scattered flower petals, the grandchildren sang, and when everyone else had left, Scarlett stayed. She sat beside the grave and talked to Kael like he was still there, because in a way, he was, in the house they'd built, in the children they'd raised, in the foundation that bore their daughter's name, in every life they'd saved after barely saving their own. "You did good," Scarlett whispered to the headstone. "You became exactly who you wanted to be." The wind rustled through the oak tree. Scarlett smiled. Then she stood up, walked back to the house, back to the family, back to the life they'd built together. And she knew, somewhere beyond the grave, Kael was smiling too. Because the woman sent to murder him had become the one thing he refused to lose. And in the end, she'd given him something more valuable than an empire. She'd given him a reason to live, and a legacy worth dying for.